Justice, ethics, and politics. Earlier we defined the law as a set of rules made by the state and enforceable by prosecution or litigation. But we also noted that this definition was rather limited in that it made no reference at all to concepts like justice or ethics or politics. In this short video we will look very briefly at the relationship between law and ethics, between law and politics, and first, the relationship between law and justice. Many people use the terms law and justice interchangeably, but they are certainly not the same thing. Justice can be understood as fairness, such as fair compensation or punishment, a fair decision, or a fair distribution of resources. If the law is the set of legal rules, justice is the standard that we expect those legal rules to aspire to. In an ideal world, all laws would be just and fair, but, of course, we do not always agree upon the fairness or justice of particular laws or particular legal decisions. Justice is in many ways a subjective concept, and where one person may agree with a particular law because they think that it's just and fair, another person may think of it as unfair. The concept of justice and fairness has influenced the development of the law generally, and the development of business law in particular in many ways. You will see later on in the subject that the concept of justice and fairness enter into the law. For example, when we look at consumer protection law in a few weeks, you will learn that consumer protection legislation prohibits a business from including unfair terms in particular types of consumer contract. When you learn about employment law later on in the subject, you will learn that employment law prohibits an employer from dismissing an employee in unfair circumstances. These are the rules around the concept of unfair dismissal. In both cases, the concepts of fairness and justice have influenced the development and the detail of the particular legal rules. What about law and ethics? Here we're going to use the terms ethics and morals interchangeably, although they do not always necessarily mean the same thing. A legal choice or a legal action is one that is consistent with the law, with the legal rules. An ethical choice or an ethical action is one that many people view as good or right. We usually expect the law and a community's ethical values to be consistent. If the community has decided that a particular type of behavior is wrong or bad, then we would expect the law to discourage or even prohibit that type of behavior. And similarly, if the community has decided that a particular type of behavior is good or right or desirable, then we would expect the law to encourage that type of behavior. For example, the community usually thinks of unjustified violence as wrong or bad, and therefore the law prohibits that type of behavior. Similarly, the community often thinks honesty is a good or desirable way to behave, and therefore the law encourages honesty and discourages dishonesty. The law and ethics, however, do not always correspond. There are going to be situations where a particular course of action is technically legal, it is consistent with the letter of the law, but many people will nevertheless view that action as wrong or bad or immoral. Similarly, there may be circumstances where a particular course of action is technically illegal. It is in breach of the law, but nevertheless, many people will think of that action as good or right or moral. We will leave it to you to come up with your own examples of each of these types of situations. Finally, what of the relationship between law and politics? Law and politics are intimately related, but law and politics are not the same thing. Laws are often, but not always, as we will see later, made by politicians. And these politicians often have political agendas. They have particular policies or ideas that they want to see implemented within the community, and they create these laws in order to implement these policies. But the law is more than just politics. The law is shaped by more than just politics. We will, in this course, occasionally take the time to consider the political origins of particular laws. There are some areas of law, such as employment law, that really cannot be fully understood without an appreciation of the political origins of those laws.